time this morning. My name is Joe Rowan, and I have the pleasure of serving as the board chair of the Northern Colorado Legislative Alliance. And welcome to our Regional Issues Summit. Before I get started, I know we have some elected officials in the room, and since I don't have the final tally on who all is here, I do want to recognize you and ask that if you would, please stand and be recognized if you're one of our elected officials. Thank you for showing up and taking time. I think we're going to have up on the screen here the Wi-Fi instructions. That's coming up. So if you need to log on, it'll have the instructions there. I'm told we're tweeting and posting today. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but join the conversation on Twitter or whatever it's called these days, and Facebook, and use the hashtag #NoCoRegionalIssues. And I'll also remind you that all materials, including the video recording of today, will be available at ncla.biz, which we will see in a little bit, and the website of your local chamber. All right, so this morning, you're going to be subjected to a lot of words, and as few for me, the better. But please listen carefully to every one of them. You're here to learn from and celebrate those who have made a commitment to controlling their own destiny, small business. And speaking of commitments, our schedule has been short just a bit so that we can all join the ribbon cutting at the bus stop that's in the middle of I-25 just south of here. The third lane is open, baby. Of course, most of it is a slalom course right now, but it'll be open. All right. So, but the job has only started on that, and we'll talk about more in a minute. For the next 90 minutes, we're here to understand what it means to own a business, what it means to risk your life savings to provide for your family, to leave something on the plate for others, and what it means to sign a paycheck. When you sign a paycheck, the health and well-being of your employee, your associate, your teammate becomes your responsibility. But here's the thing, you now hold responsibility for their family as well. So think about that. And if you've never signed a paycheck, you cannot comprehend the weight of such a commitment. And to our elected officials and those that aspire, we simply ask that you consider this while present in chambers. Before we proceed, I'd like to personally acknowledge those who have made this event possible. Amanda Miller and her team at the Place Setting Company. They've done a fantastic job of holding this operation together despite my instructions. We simply ask you, let's see, so thank Amanda and your team, and please look her up. Sandra Solin, who you'll hear from in a moment, and her associate, Tari King, with Capital Solutions. These two ladies are dynamos, if that's still an acceptable term, at getting shit done. So heartfelt thanks to Sandra and Tari and your team. And now, if they haven't pulled back, our sponsors, gold sponsor, Elevations Credit Union, who you will also hear from shortly. Silver sponsors, BizWest, Pinnacle Assurance, and UC Health. Bronze sponsors, Comcast, and Credit Union, iHeartMedia, Slate, an Element Studio, and Stonescape Steel Roofing. And our event sponsors, Fairfield by Marriott, Candlewood Suites, Canvas Credit Union, Northern Engineering Services, and Total Facility Care. Please join me in thanking all these companies for making this possible and caring enough to promote the NCLA and its mission. So who are we and what is our mission? The mission of the NCLA is to unite and empower the members of the Fort Collins, Greeley, and Loveland Chambers of Commerce alongside upstate Colorado, with the means to generate a strong voice for positive impact on state and federal policy, regulations, and legislation that affect businesses' ability to succeed and to help create a more positive business climate for the future of Northern Colorado business. I love a sentence that strings out long enough that I can brush my teeth. But now, on with the show. Please help me welcome Dennis Paul, Vice President of Government Affairs and Strategic Partners for Elevations Credit Union. Paul? Dennis,
well, thank you, Joe, and special thanks to NCLA for the work they're doing. I always say that they're not doing good work. They're doing critical work in our communities. On behalf of our board of directors at Elevations Credit Union, as well as our executive team, we're thrilled to be able to sponsor NCLA, as well as the corresponding chambers of commerce. We're very involved with Dan, Jamie, and Mindy, and we appreciate your leadership in the community. I was thinking on the way up here, Northern Colorado Prospers. Now that's a program, but it's also a mantra. So Northern Colorado truly does thrive and prosper. I came to Fort Collins in 1980. So I did a little homework last night. In 1980, the population of Fort Collins itself was 81,000. And when I left in 85, I finally got my degree from CSU. It was still 81,000. So today, it's 188,000 in Fort Collins and still growing. In 1985, Larimer County had a total population of 169,000 folks. Today, that population is 365,000. It's unbelievable. I don't have to tell you about the growth. Weld County population in 1985 was 131,000. Today, it's 351,829. So that's a pretty dramatic growth. So when we think about regional issues and the importance of managing those issues, the growth in Northern Colorado warrants all the work that NCLA is doing. The two counties, Weld and Larimer County, account for 1 out of every 10 Coloradans. I thought that was fascinating. Elevations has been around since 1952, and we came north in 2011. We had the opportunity to acquire the assets of a small credit union in Loveland, back at Long's Peak Credit Union, which was originally Northern Colorado Water. And for those of you that have been in the community a long time, that was the Newberger family. And our foundation still has a name scholarship in their name. We came to Fort Collins in 2014. And we've opened 3 branches. We've also opened branches in Greeley-weld production offices. We are first and foremost a mortgage lender. We were the #1 mortgage lender, credit union mortgage lender west of the Mississippi. And of course, thanks to the rate environment and Chairman Powell, who I've taken off my Christmas card list, mortgages are few and far between. I'll just share with you, I indicated that on behalf of our board of directors, we're thrilled to support organizations in Northern Colorado. Elevations is a Baldrige company, and there's no strangers to Baldrige in Northern Colorado. The Montfort School at Greeley is a Baldrige recipient, and of course, the city of Fort Collins in 2017, Pluter Health Systems in 2015. We're very proud of that designation. It is the highest presidential award for quality. And it's something that we take very seriously. So it's a treat to be here amongst you all, and coming to Northern Colorado is one of my favorite things to do. So thank you very much for having us and allowing us to sponsor this program. And I think I'm turning it over to Ann, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. What should I do? Sorry. Thank you so much, Dennis. We appreciate you being here today, making the trip, but also to Elevations Credit Union for being our overall sponsoring event. So thank you. Good morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Ann Hutchison. I'm President and CEO of the Fort Collins Area Chamber. And I have the tremendous honor of kickstarting our day. And many of you, almost all of you in this room, are spending every day doing the work of running a business. So we know that you don't have time to lift your head up and do all the analysis to know exactly the impact something is going to have on your business. Well, you're in luck. We've brought 2 of the strongest business experts to our community today to help set the stage relative to the game that is afoot for us as business. And those of you that know me know I'm a huge sports fan, and I consider the two folks that we're bringing to the stage here in just a moment as the scouts. They're scouting out and understanding the players, the landscape, the plays that are going to occur, and really working hard to position business to be a success throughout the legislative session. Policy has a direct impact on your business every single day. And we want to make sure that we're advocating for and creating a very positive business climate in Colorado so you can continue to do that work. So with that, I'm going to invite to the stage our two panelists. We have Rachel Beck. She's the Executive Director of the Colorado Competitive Council. Rachel has more than 20 years of experience advocating for business and doing so most recently with the Colorado Competitive Council, which is a part of the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce. C3, as it's called, has been this tremendous resource for all of us in the chamber space. They've opened the door for us to have access to their lobbyists, the analysis that they're doing on bills, but also helping to create a common voice for business. So we're so thrilled to have Rachel joining us. And then sitting alongside her this morning is Sandra Solin. She's the founder and chief bottle washer at Capital Solutions. She's been our NCLA lobbyist for the entire life of NCLA. And again, one of those people that is spending time every single day analyzing the landscape, helping to position us as business to be successful, and then taking it over the finish line at the end of the day by being a voice for northern Colorado businesses every single day of the session. So I'll invite both of them to join us. Please help me in welcoming them to the stage. Perfect. So as I mentioned, these are the scouts. They're out there doing the analysis. So our first question for them today is, in 4 minutes or less, I know that's hard, provide a 50,000 feet view of the 2024 General Assembly, so the people that are sitting there at the state capitol, and a little bit of your analysis of the team that's about ready to take the field.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see you this morning. And as we were walking up, Rachel said, I think Ann just said you're old and you do bottle washing. I'm joking. No, it's wonderful to be here. And yeah, I've been with the organization for a very long time, and it gives me great pleasure to represent the interests of Northern Colorado every day, day in and day out. And I really did grow up with this organization, and so it's just a pleasure. And I'm sort of grinning ear to ear because I live in Denver, and I make the drive up North I-25, have been doing that for many, many years. And this morning I drove on the open section of Segment 6, and that was the most remarkable, like, I have the chills right now. It's so remarkable, and it's thanks to so many of you, most of you in this room who contributed mightily to the work that we've done over all the years. And so, sorry, I'm sort of distracted from your original question, but that accomplishment can't be unnoticed. And for those of you who are attending the I-25 are becoming wonderful. And for those of you who are not, thank you for everything you've done. Oh, I'm going to choke up. To your question, the 24 legislative session will be a continuation, if you will, from the last legislative session in which we found ourselves with an expanded majority on the Democrat side and an environment in which there's increasing tensions within respective caucuses and so forth. What we experience at the federal level in terms of political tensions and dynamics are frankly no different at the state level in many ways. And so we have to navigate through that. But as an organization and working in partnership with our other business community friends statewide and chambers of commerce across the state, we found areas in which we could be truly successful in driving the business community voice and having outcomes that were worked to either our favor or in a defensive posture, ensuring we were protective of the interests of the community. And it's with the work of our Northern Colorado legislators, many of whom are here, and so thank you so much for Representative Kemp, Representative Baismaker, Representative Armagoss back there. Our Northern Colorado legislators, and I think there are a few others who are supposed to be here, but Representative Lynch is back there. We are so fortunate to have a contingent of legislators who really do work well together and are so receptive to the interests and to the concerns that we bring forward as legislation and policy decisions are being made. And we're grateful for that. It's a continuation of a legacy of legislators from the region who do work well together and appreciate the interests of the policy implications to our economy and the unique interests of Northern Colorado. So hopefully that answers some of your question, but yeah, please.
Dive a little deeper, Sandra, as far as the numbers and what it takes, right? And players on the field.
Yeah.
What else do we need to know?
So,
Great people in Northern Colorado, I got that. But talk a little bit more about some of the nuts and bolts.
So we have, as I mentioned, the majority party at the State House has, in both bodies, have a supermajority or a near supermajority in terms of their numbers. And in order to, you need 33 votes in the House, 18 votes in the Senate, and this is the reality, and 1 vote in the Senate. And it's a math game. We count votes to secure the outcome legislatively that we need, whether it's through amendments, it's or passage of bills, or the defeat of either of those. And there's also a committee structure that we have to work in, and Rachel will speak a little bit to that in terms of how the numbers work. But those majorities translate also to significant numbers in those respective committees. And so as we count our votes, we assess and understand who fits within each of the caucuses to get to those critical 33, 18, and 1. And we, again, have been fortunate. There are places in which we find the opportunity to secure support for our position, but it was harder this last year, particularly on the House side. We found avenues to address and secure the votes on the Senate side. It was an easier lift for us, 6 votes differential in the majority, but the moderates, if you will, and some of those who were a bit more business friendly, we largely found on the Senate side. The lift on the House side is much more significant. It's 14 vote differential in the majority, and that's a lot of votes. So that, I think, provides a little bit of context for the work that we do, and again, the importance of the appeal of our issues and the way in which we communicate to the legislators who make up, we can get those 33 votes. And so communication, our message is really key, and the stories that you all bring to the table is also essential, and we'll talk a lot about that today as well.
Rachel, why don't you talk a little bit about committees and some of the leadership dynamics that you've been able to observe? All right, well, thank you for having me, Ann. And before I do that, I got to chime in on this I-25 business, because I was sure to put my coffee this morning in my fixed I-25 now. We did it mug, which was a gift from Ann. And I love this because it reminds me that we can do impossible things if we work together and we put our minds to it. So congratulations to all of you who overcame bureaucracy and funding challenges and a whole lot of other obstacles. A lot of that has to do with you two ladies, so congratulations to all of you. It's a particularly good time. You can clap. But back to the legislature. So you mentioned leadership, Ann, and there's a great group of people who are leading this General Assembly. And this is year 2 for that group of leaders. Representative Lynch is among those, so you are well represented in leadership as Northern Coloradans. There is one notable change to that, and that is a change in the Senate Majority Leader. Senator Dominic Moreno, who is very highly respected, left
his seat to go work for the new mayor of Denver, Mike Johnston. And so he's been replaced by Senator Robert Rodriguez, who's previously chaired the business committee. So it's good to have somebody with that sort of perspective and leadership. But that's a key change for one important reason. I mean, aside from the fact that watching the people move around is like the Real Housewives of the state capitol for political junkies. Does anybody know what is one of the key jobs of a majority leader? I stumped you, class. It's committee assignments. And so he has made some changes to who is on some of those committees, some of the numbers of the committees. And that matters for a couple of reasons. Of course, as you all know from your civics class, the majority of the work on bills is done in committees. That's where legislators roll up their sleeves and do the amendment work. A bill can fail in committee and never even make it to the larger body, and it stops there. And if we look back at last session, all of the things, with one notable exception, which we'll talk about, that matter to business, they came down to one vote in one committee, typically in the Senate. And so who sits in those seats and who is making those decisions is really, really key. And if the outcomes can swing on one person's vote, and we saw that repeatedly last session on things that matter to business, then those assignments are really critical.
Fantastic, thank you. Either one of you want to share some comments on the one vote at the end of the party? Yeah, on the governor?
Yeah, of course, the one is the governor, and his need to weigh in. He's the final arbiter on policy decisions, and he utilized his veto authority, I think it was 10 times this last legislative session. One of those vetoes was in an area that was particularly important to Northern Colorado, related to URAs, and we're very grateful for that. But he and his staff work closely with us in in that policy debate. He's an important voice, and we need him either with us or standing with us when we can. And that pressure, if he's with us in certain areas, can also be helpful in leaning on the legislative leaders for outcome that is our preference. So he is an essential piece and has been a more present leader in the second floor, as we say, in the legislative arena than we've seen in some past governors, in fact. So he's an important consideration as we look at the legislation and incorporate that into our strategic efforts.
Thank you. So we've got a little bit of lay of the land relative to the players that are going to be on the court. Let's talk a little bit about the plays of the game. In other words, the issues that are most likely going to be coming across the threshold that we should, as citizens, and especially as business advocates, be paying attention to. And Rachel, will start off with you. I think chief on the list will be property tax, of course. We've just come off a special session, which is unusual, following on the failure of Prop HH. This is a huge issue for all of us. I don't have to tell you, I'm sure you have seen your property tax bills and your eyes got real big. I saw a statistic recently that the average Colorado home in the Front Range has increased 40% in 2 years in valuation. And then you add to that we as voters repealed the Gallagher Amendment at the ballot, which was holding down residential property taxes and pushing that burden onto commercial property owners, and we have ourselves a real pickle. So Prop HH came out of the legislature in the last 3 days of the session and was a very complicated measure. And I think any ballot initiative that passes or fails always comes down to multiple factors. There's never one thing that means it was successful or it failed. But certainly chief among the reasons that Prop HH failed was its complicated nature. Voters did not feel that they could understand it, and they weren't sure what they were signing up for. And generally when voters are confused, the safe thing to do feels like voting no. And so we did. Now I'm from El Paso County,
And so folks down there had a lot to say about that measure's implications for Tabor. So that was a factor as well. Renters really didn't get anything out of Prop HH. That's 30% of Coloradans. We put a roof over our head. We rent, a lot of us. And so that was a factor as well. And I'm sure there were others. So coming out of the special session, the results I've heard described as Prop HH light. And so we will see $434 million in residential property tax relief. The legislature only dealt with residential property taxes in that special session, and it's just for this year. So we've got a temporary solution in place. There's also $30 million that will go to rental assistance, and a couple of other things that were passed. Just 7 bills that were passed in special session out of 14 introduced. So very narrow scope there. So coming into this session, the legislature will be tasked with coming up with a longer-term solution. As a business community, of course, we hope that that includes some commercial property tax relief. Commercial property taxes are at 29% versus the 6.7% that residents pay. When we passed Gallagher back in 1982, those were roughly on par, 8% for both types of properties. You can see how far we have come, and that we really need to take a look at that for the longer term. There is a task force made up of all sorts of people representing different interests that will assist the legislature in that job. They will start meeting in about a week, and then they have until mid-March to complete their work, make recommendations to the legislature so that they have time to run the bills that are necessary to implement whatever recommendations they come up with. And then looming in the background are 2 ballot initiatives. So we may have other options. One of those will propose a 4% cap on increases annually. Pretty simple. So you contrast that with Prop HH, that one's pretty easy to understand. Then there's a second measure that's slightly more complicated. That would propose resetting values to 2020 levels and then capping increases at 2.5% a year. If you sold your property, that amount would be reset at current market values, and then that 2.5% would go from there. So a lot of policy proposals already swirling about, and I'm sure we will hear some more from that task force, and we'll see what happens if we can come up with something better than we came up last year that people will feel is a better solution.
So while we move over to Sandra to talk a bit about air quality, I do want to do a special shout out. So Sean Doherty, who is a resident here in Northern Colorado, a ginormous volunteer for the Fort Collins area chamber, but also functions throughout the region, has been appointed to that task force. So any of you that have any ideas, find him in the bright Hawaiian shirt before you leave today, because he is on a mission to bring some pragmatic but out-of-the-box thinking to the task force. So take full advantage, and thank you, Representative Lynch, for appointing Sean. We're thrilled to have him representing Northern Colorado as well as the real estate community. So thank you.
Well, also representing Northern Colorado is Brenda Jones, who's the assessor from Weld County. So we're well represented in this region. So yes, congratulations, thank you. I did want to touch on air quality and its intersect with energy sector and transportation. Air quality, climate change, greenhouse gas, ozone, those have been issues that have been very front and center for this legislature over the last several years, and we've seen the outcome of policy decisions related to desire to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and ozone. This coming session will be no different, and at present there is a interim committee meeting to discuss additional measures, policy measures to further reduce the emissions and its impact upon ozone. We are involved and we're partnered with Weld County, who has done a tremendous amount of work and investment in assuring that science is leading the conversation around the ozone circumstances we find ourselves in. Of course, northern Colorado, along with the metro area, is within a non-attainment zone, which is an EPA designation, and we are in a severe status. So we are subjected to significant federal regulatory sort of burdens from our perspective, but also those drive then local conversations about ways in which we need to additional measures and mechanisms by which we need to reduce those ozone and GHG emissions. As a result of sort of this interim committee work, we are, and based upon the science, moving towards and urging a look at sectors beyond the oil and gas industry, the energy sector, which has done a tremendous amount of work in this space, demonstrated particularly in northern Colorado by their advancements that are beyond that which we see in other parts of this country. Colorado, as they say, we developed the cleanest molecule of oil and gas in the country and even internationally. Building upon that, there has to be an acknowledgement that there are other places in which we can begin to drive change in order to assure that there aren't burdens that put out of business the oil and gas industry in Colorado, which is an important legacy industry for our region. Those sectors would be lawn and garden, our two-stroke gas-powered lawnmowers are significant contributors. In fact, I think I heard an hour's worth of mowing your lawn is the equivalent of 130 cars that drive for a period of time. I mean, it's like insane, the contribution. Well, let's address that in some meaningful way and through incentives and so forth around electric. The other part is certainly the transportation sector. North I-25's, the importance of North I-25 really stems from the investment in an express lane and mobility hubs. That express lane was intended to drive reduction in congestion. We know that idling cars and congestion have an impact upon the emissions in our region. So the investment in that roadway is, in addition to the ease with which we can get and the reliability with which we can get from point A to point B, it also has a significant benefit to emissions. And so further investments, not only in I-25, but also other parts of the state. US 34 comes quickly to mind as a place where we need to make additional investments in alleviation of congestion, and other parts of the North Front Range and metropolitan area are really important. And unfortunately, there's been a shift away from some of that investment in roadway. But it needs to be coupled with mobility improvements as well, encouraging folks to utilize buses where appropriate and where it's convenient is an important part of the broader sort of comprehensive solution. This Ozone Committee will be bringing forward legislation as individual members of the Ozone Committee. We brought members of that Ozone Legislative Interim Committee to Northern Colorado just last week to really understand the advancements that Northern Colorado is demonstrating in addressing the ozone concerns that emanate from this region and metro area. And folks were enlightened. They saw the air monitoring system that Weld County has invested in. They understood and saw North I-25 and the mobility hub that we'll see today. And then also saw firsthand the work that the oil and gas industry is doing. And so that's going to be a really important piece of the equation for us next year. And it's consistent with the continued work that we've done over the many years in those particular areas.
Great.
Finish that?
Yeah, thanks. Rachel, I'll have you talk a little bit about land use.
This is another big topic that we'll see quite a bit of legislation on this coming session, I think. Land use and housing, and we started talking about those together. So last year, we went back to an omnibus bill that proposed a number of policy changes, everything from zoning to water leak assessment, And he took a big swing, and I think he deserves some credit for moving the conversation forward. I know I've never been invited to so many housing policy groups since that bill than I ever have been before, despite the fact that we've known that this is a huge issue for our competitiveness as a state. It's a huge issue connected to our workforce challenges, and it's part of why we're starting to get major dings in business rankings nationwide for cost of living. Now, that bill didn't go over well with a lot of folks, especially local communities who felt like they were already doing a lot of the things that were proposed in the bill, and that it actually restricted them more than helped them. But of course, that topic has not gone away. You may have noticed we still have some housing affordability challenges. So what he said is that those bills, those concepts will be broken up into a series of bills instead, probably focusing on 3 things. So we'll see one bill on accessory dwelling units, also known as granny flats, and trying to make those easier to build in neighborhoods. One focused on changes to zoning policies, and then a third that would look at transit-oriented development and encouraging density specifically around places that are well served by transit.
Fantastic. And just a few quick words. I'd love for either one of you to talk a little bit about Front Range Rail, since that will be coming our way, unemployment insurance, and fair work week. Those will be the last 3.
Oh, and we should probably talk about construction defects before we move on.
That would be great.
Sort of dovetailing into the housing conversation, land use. The NCLA is an active participant in the conversations as an executive committee member in construction defects reform. We believe that this is an essential piece of the affordable housing equation. Rachel mentioned that 30% of our population rents in Colorado, and that's a very high number relative to other states. And it's largely driven by the fact that their access to affordable for-sale condos and living arrangements is restricted by virtue of liability concerns and insurance concerns to build those very condos that many of us maybe started our own careers and lives and building families in. The ability to have upward mobility economically for our citizens is significantly hindered by virtue of the construction defects policy that exists today. So we are an important player in the integral conversation around construction defects reform that will address the right to remedy and alleviate the process that exists today to find a cleaner path to ensure that we get condos built, for-sale condos built for our citizens, as a component of addressing the affordable housing issue.
Great. Anything you want to share on those other topics? Front Range Rail, unemployment insurance, or fair work week? Very high level, very short.
Fair work week, Front Range Rail. Front Range Rail, a lot of conversation that has been unfolding for the last several years. A high priority, an agenda item for the governor to see rail formed ultimately from Cheyenne all the way down to New Mexico, but the initial phase would be the Colorado line. Johnny Olson is a member of the Front Range Commission, or Front Range, I don't even know the acronyms anymore, so many acronyms. Anyway, and right now there is consideration, 2 things. They are determining the route. We will have an announcement, I believe, mid-December in terms of the route from north to south. The expectation is it will be 287, along the 287 route in this region. And then they're also in conversations about the various funding mechanisms. There is an opportunity for them to go to the ballot in 24 to ask the Front Range and all the way down the Front Range corridor down through Pueblo for taxing authority at a certain rate. We don't know what that looks like exactly. There's a go, no-go point in mid-April as to whether or not they will actually pursue that 24 election. That taxing district that is presently authorized within the legislation that established the Front Range Rail District encompasses Larimer and Weld County. During this next legislative session, we anticipate some cleanup legislation around the authority, but incorporated into that could very well be a conversation around whether or not Weld County ought to be a part of that taxing district. Because of the distance from Weld County in which the rail will reside, doesn't make sense that Weld County is part of that taxing district. The ability to use it will be significantly limited, as you can imagine. Take you 30 minutes, 40 minutes to get to the rail, and then another half hour to get to Denver. Doesn't seem terribly practical. So we will be a part of that conversation, and it's unfolding as we speak. But we appreciate the work that has gone into the conversation around rail. It's a part of the equation. We have largely been, we have said from the outset when we were doing I-25, like, gotta finish that project first, and then we can have a conversation about rail. But it is an important part of the equation, and we look forward to the continued dialogue around that.
Okay, let me follow the exciting topic of front range rail with the truly sexy topic, insurance. I joke, but this is really key to all sorts of costs and other issues that we care about in Colorado. So I want to mention a couple quickly. Unemployment insurance, of course, is something that we've all paid a lot more attention to in recent years because of how much we had to call on that safety net during the pandemic. We depleted that fund to the tune of taking out $1 billion loan with the federal government. So we've all been working to replenish that fund and make sure that safety net is there for future people who need it. And as a matter of fact, right now, there are more people on unemployment insurance now than there were a year ago. So, you know, the trajectory continues to go up and down. Last year, we saw 6 bills that tried to tap into unemployment insurance funds for other purposes. Some of them creating new programs, notably one proposed a dependent allowance to come out of those funds. So as you know, these are funds that are entirely paid by employers. You pay those funds as an insurance policy for your workers that if they become unemployed, then they've got a safety net. And this particular bill proposed that if that unemployed worker had dependents like children, they would receive additional funds. And I don't think anybody's disputing the idea that if you have dependents, that it is more of a burden if you are unemployed. But the business community really felt like that was not an appropriate place to add that particular sort of program, especially given the timing of still trying to bring those dollars back up to where they needed to be. So we expect for that bill to come back again this session and perhaps others that will try to access those funds for other purposes. And then also on the insurance front, we've got a lot of work to do on the property and casualty front. There's a lot of red flags that we're seeing right now in terms of carriers that do not want to take on new customers. They may renew you if you currently are doing business with them. They're not doing more business. Certainly in the aftermath of the Marshall fire, we've seen all sorts of issues related to cost and coverage. Sandra mentioned construction defects. That is an insurance problem. And so there's one carrier in Colorado that will even write condo policies because of our unique construction defects laws. So, as I said, this is something that underlies so many other issues that we care about and is a huge cost driver. And the last one I want to mention on that front is a biggie. And that is, there's a proposal coming, probably actually at the ballot. There may be elements that we'll see during the session that would, backed by some trial attorneys, that would remove medical malpractice caps. This is a big deal. There are 2 parts. If I slip and fall on the way out here today and I sue this fine establishment, there's no cap on what I could get for actual damages like medical bills, lost wages. But there are caps on how much can be paid out for pain and suffering, or what we now call non-economic damages. If we remove those caps for medical suits, and I'm hearing rumors that that might be extended to all lawsuits, what that will do to our health insurance costs, what that will do to business costs, to risk for businesses in the state, it's hard to contemplate. So I sound very alarmist. There are folks who are working on putting some data around that so that we can be more specific about what those impacts would be. But it's one I really want to raise the flag on because we will need folks like you to be talking to your fellow voters, talking to your legislators about the impacts of such a policy.
Fantastic. That's the perfect segue to our close. We're moving fast today. So you each get 30 seconds to share your hype reel, right? A sports coach should need a hype reel before you hit the floor. But what are you excited about in the 2024 session and what advice? And again, you only get a minute each.
30 seconds.
There you go.
Excited is a word that doesn't necessarily correspond to the legislative session. So don't know that I can name something, except I do enjoy. I really do enjoy the work and the representation, of course, on behalf of the industry and being successful working with our legislators. So excited about the opportunities there. Advice, stay engaged. We will have some conversation here in a moment about new tools that the NCLA is bringing forward to help you be engaged. Your stories, your experience matters in the process, and so I cannot encourage you enough to share. We know that it can feel intimidating, but understand, and I think our legislators will concur, they want to hear from you. They need to understand perspectives that from in your words, in your voice, and your experience. So just highly encourage engagement.
Thank you, Sandra. Rachel?
I'm just going to underline that because I too think that is so important and it's effective. We didn't talk about Fair Work Week today, which I think is one you probably all followed pretty closely. It would have had huge effects on restaurants and retailers. And the reason that that bill failed is because legislators heard from their constituents, and the ones who voted against it said, I got emails, I got phone calls, and so I'm responding to that. And you know, the 99% of the folks who are in elected office that I have worked with in my long time, and say I'm noted, are in it because they want to make their communities in Colorado a better place. They want to talk to you. They know that they have limited experience, as we all do. They want to hear about your experience. So being plugged into an organization like NCLA helps you do that. You can also just call your representative and ask them to go to coffee. Ask them to come to something that's happening in your business. They're probably going to come. Nice.
Thank you. Join me in thanking these amazing women. Quick last wrap up for myself is if you're inspired to come to public service, whether that's at the local, the county, the state, the federal level, you're in luck. We have a tremendous resource right here in Northern Colorado, which is Leveraging Local Leaders. And they are actually accepting applications right now for individuals to go through their training program that can set the stage for you to be a successful elected official. And Leah Johnson is here. I lost track where she is. She's right there. So if you're at all interested in that conversation, grab Leah. She will be happy to talk your ear off about the opportunity. If you're not quite ready today, certainly check out their website, which is leveraginglocalleaders.com, where you can learn all about the program, their success rate, as well as the opportunities for you to get plugged in. Thank you again. It's been my honor to be on stage, but I'm more excited to hand the microphone off to Jamie Henning, the President and CEO of the Greeley Chamber. Please welcome Jamie.
I'm going to ask all of our panelists for the next session to come up and join me on stage. I'm honored to represent over 700 investors in the Greeley area, and we all know that part of what makes the Chamber special is our convening and our volunteer leadership. So I just want to take a quick point of privilege and point out Jason Jones. Without his being interest, he's our board chair this year. So thank you, Jason, for your leadership and all you do. I also want to mention the very critical and important voice that we have here at NCLA. Thank you so much for being with us again. It's incredible to see this audience here. And one of the things that I think are most critical, we as an NCLA group get to serve as a voice for you. So we want to be really careful we're representative of that voice, but also there are special times when we get to work with volunteers, some of which are up on the stage today. who are the great few who step in and actually speak for their businesses and help bring others around the issues. And so today we wanted to offer them a bit of a storytelling opportunity. So I will not be bobbing in with lots of questions until the end. I'll give you a chance to wrap. I think each of you will get about 7 minutes. So I would just ask that you introduce yourself and your business, and then also can you please share just a little bit about how you've worked. I was talking with Tiffany on the way up about the critical sector that our restaurants and hospitality partners are and all the work they've done to bring others around it. We also appreciate High Country Beverage. They're going to talk a little bit about transportation today. And then I'm very proud to have Cheri here representing the Greeley area and the region, talking about housing. So there's not a room we walk into where that's not discussed. So we're going to start with Tiffany today. I'm going to go ahead and hand you the mic, and thanks for being here.
All right, well, thank you for having us. I'm Tiffany Heltom. I am the co-founder of Stuft Burger Bar in Old Town, Fort Collins. I have also created a company called Online Restaurant Academy, and that is a space where we teach local restaurant owners or entrepreneurs, actually all over the country, how to open up restaurants and hospitality businesses the right way. So that's been really fun. We work with a lot of government entities, so I've worked with a lot of you on creating programs for your entrepreneurs in your area. So it's exciting. And I didn't realize a lot of the work I do or have done is now advocacy work. It just kind of happened. I thought I was slinging burgers my whole life, and all of a sudden I'm here. So thank you for having me. I also sit on the board of the NOCO Sector Partnership in this area. That is really important because it brings together small businesses like mine with government and also big businesses. So we are trying to solve issues like housing, employee issues, business issues, and we all come together at the table to help solve this problem. So pretty fantastic. I'm also a restaurant consultant for the Small Business Development Center in Lambert County. So I work with the local entrepreneurs and restaurant owners and give them free consulting to help them to where they need to be. So I do a lot. But honestly, my hardest job right now is I am the team manager for my little son's hockey team, ice hockey team. So that's the hardest job that I do. Anyways, it's also fun. But all of these issues that you guys mentioned, ahead of us coming up here, there are a lot of issues facing small businesses. In the restaurant industry in particular, how many restaurants did you see go out of business in 2020, right? Restaurants. How many restaurants are you still now seeing go out of business? For us, the industry has sort of recovered, but it has not fully recovered, if that makes sense. And as a small business owner, anytime we have some of these bigger bills or bigger regulations that are sort of looming on us, we get scared, right? And being scared as a business owner hinders growth, right? And when I was asked to come today, I thought, well, what can I share with this group that might make you sort of understand what it's like to be a restaurant owner? Because it is unlike any other business, I promise you. It's wonderful, it's exciting, and it's difficult, right? The average restaurant owner, and I know this because I work with restaurant owners as a consultant, the average restaurant owner, their net profit is between 5 to 7%. Okay, so I don't know who owns businesses here. I don't know what businesses you own, but that's not the best return, right? Between 5 to 7%. And the hours that restaurant owners work is brutal, right? It can be very rewarding, and when I say 5 to 7% net profit, that's the average, right? Some restaurants are doing way above, they're doing great, and some not so much, right? But from what I know and my experience in this area, a typical coffee shop in this area will gross about $500,000 a year, right? So if I take the average of that 5 to 7% and just go in the middle at 6%, who can do that math of 6% of the $500,000 in sales? Who can do the math? $30,000. So I don't tell you that to feel bad for us, right? Because there's a lot of us that maybe are doing above that 7%. But I tell you that to make you aware that it's not always what you think, right?
and you walk into these restaurants and some are busier than others, right? But busy in sales doesn't necessarily mean great profits. And why would somebody go into business to make $30,000 a year for their family? They wouldn't do that, right? So I mention this because we have to be careful with regulations, right? We have to be careful with what we're doing. As a restaurant owner, I take care of my employees well. And my mission, part of my mission, is to give a great guest experience, to have the best burger in Northern Colorado, but it's also to take care of my staff. That is part of my mission as a business owner and a passion. So when things like the fair work week come up, I like the idea around those, right? I like the idea that we could provide staff, better working hours and predictable schedules. I like all of those things. The issue is, where does the money come from small business owners to be able to afford and to pay for some of these things? They're costly. And in our industry, I wish we could kind of break out of some of these bills as our own segment, right? But we can't do that, right? And so I guess, my advocacy work is all over the place, right? Like, I want to educate you and I want to educate other people to be aware that small businesses are very fragile and they are absolutely the backbone of our state and of our community. But also in my heart, I do have passion for employees, and I do, because I was an employee, I was a bartender, I was a server, right? So I do have passion, and I think what I would ask is that we just are all sitting at these same tables together, right? I will join any officials at any table when you need ideas, you need help. I will sit with employees to figure out what is the best schedule for them, how do we afford increases in wages, but it has to be all together. It can't be just a few deciding these things, because for a lot of us, these regulations don't make sense. And so all I would ask again is that we together would come to this table. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it, and I am always open to discuss anything related to small business. And I also want to say thank you to all of you for supporting restaurants and small businesses, especially during 2020, because we really, really needed it. And you know what? We also need it now. So thank you so much.
I love this question, Margaret Hutchison. Thank you for sharing that the heart of the work we do is truly for small business. I don't know how many of you know this, but I was asked the question last week. Inside any of the 3 chambers that we represent here, does anyone know the percentage of small business that make up our organizations? About 60 to 70% of our organizations are made up of small business. So thank you for serving as a voice to explain how that sometimes there are unintended consequences, the legislation that we're moving through, and also how that impacts your business as we work forward. So thank you. Bryce, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you next.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Bryce Copperroot. I work for High Country Beverage. We're a local family-owned beverage distributor. We've been in business in Northern Colorado for going on 28 years now. And we're blessed to live here, right? Blessed to do business here, and blessed to represent the brands within the community that we have here. So I'll touch a little bit on transportation. Everybody here is aware of Fix I-25 and the campaign there, and I can't thank our local legislative teams enough. Jamie, Ann, Mindy, your teams, the NCLA, all that you guys have done. We've done some tremendous work and overcome a lot of obstacles to get that to where we are today accomplished, right? A little bit about us and our story here. We have 200 families in Northern Colorado that we support day in and day out. As a business member, community member, that's a big deal, right? Safety of our employees, first and foremost, is paramount to us. So seeing this congestion, seeing what we've accomplished here and what we expect to come from Fix I-25 and getting everything open is very exciting. For us personally as a business, we've been involved from the beginning of really trying to be an advocate for that. Transportation is very challenging. Out of our 200 families, there are 200 employees that we have. On any given day, we've got about 100 employees that use I-25. Our territory goes from 144th in Denver to the Wyoming border, and also from Estes Park out to the Kansas border. So we've got part of it is geography, and that's our territory, that's our business, and that is what it is, and we're excited to have that. But any given day, we've got 50 hours of use on I-25, and that's a big increase over the years. And today's wage challenges and inflation and everything else, you guys can understand over the last 6, 7, 8, 10 years how much that increase, and as you try to manage costs responsibly and run a business, there's some challenges there. So very excited to see all the growth here and in northern Colorado. You know, I know we started the meeting talking about what population looked like back in the day and where it is today. With that growth, the infrastructure and transportation and managing that and keeping that a priority is certainly paramount for everybody, right? And again, I'll go back to safety. There's nothing worse than getting a phone call from an employee saying, hey, I was in a minor fender bender. And it's not just dealing with that, it's dealing with your employee's emotion, safety. You know, I'm late for a meeting now, my day has been derailed. So really just all of those ancillary factors. You know, when we do our manpower plans, like everybody else, you have to factor drive time into that. You factor your full employees' days into that. You look at what the employees' work days are, work weeks are now versus what they were 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago. And so that significantly impacts your financial outlook, your bottom line as a business owner, and as you work through that. So again, we're very, very fortunate to live here, to work here. We're very fortunate to have all of you representing us and our interests as we look at this thing. But it's not just the business side of things. It's really community safety, right? It's really having those types of things that really influence our decisions and how we look at things from a transportation standpoint. And while we've had a lot of wins with Fix I-25, Sandra, I think you touched on Highway 34 and some other thoroughfares that, you know, we just really need to continue this momentum and continue to have the conversation. And we appreciate the voice down at the Capitol level with Mike and some of the other people here that help us out. So that's really all I had to say and touch on. I did want to thank all of you guys for your support and very excited for today. So.
Thank you so much for your work,
Thank
especially in this important area of transportation. So appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and turn over the mic to you. I know this is a limiting time for all three of you to talk about complex issues, but just want to thank you for your work in weaving together an area that is really important to all of us and really critical solutions. So we'd love to have you talk about this today.
Well, I think as everybody said today, it's nice to be with you all this morning. I'm Cheri Witt-Brown, I'm the CEO of Greeley-weld Habitat for Humanity, and as we've been discussing today, a hot topic is housing, and particularly housing affordability. I grew up in this business. My father was a developer, builder. I owned a general contractor. I always say I came to Habitat to the light side from the dark side. Many of you, I was a business owner for over 23 years on the western slope. Built along with my team about 500 homes from Glenwood to Grand Junction. And I have seen the cost of housing just skyrocket in our state. And frankly, with really no relief in sight. So it's been my pleasure for the last 8 years to work for Habitat for Humanity in Greeley and Weld County. And one of the exciting things that I have to share with you today is that we as a Habitat affiliate, you may not know this, but Habitat globally and nationally is the world's largest affordable housing provider. And we have 1,300 affiliates, 70 countries. Many of our families are essential workers. They're your workforce. They work at your businesses. So without organizations like Habitat for Humanity that are bringing to scale, economies to scale, developments that really will provide the housing that you and your employees need. In Greeley, I'm really proud of some of the innovative work. Many times we think of Habitat building 3, 4, a house here, a house there, right? In Greeley, we have developed what we call large-scale developments. In fact, for many years, we had the largest single-family development, 60 homes, over by the Stampede Fairgrounds. That was started in the early 2000s, I believe. and completed in 2016. When I joined the affiliate, we really did take this model, this community development model, and grow it. In Evans, do you recall how many homes were lost in the 2013 flood? Anybody? Over 200. We have developed a community development model that does maximize land use, that is very innovative in creating workforce partnerships with our local school district and Haynes Community College. And I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to just try to stick with, the wins that we've had. But in Ames, or with Ames, with our partners like Evans, Colorado, we put back 100 affordable units of the 200 that were lost in Evans. This is with a continuum of housing from part rental and majority home ownership. We have taken that model in Greeley and quadrupled it. We are now building the largest habitat development in the state of Colorado, one of the largest in the western region. There will be 491 housing units, 174 habitat homes. Think of how many of your employees will now have opportunity to own a stable home, a home that they will pay less than 30% of their income towards their housing. So they have money left over if their car breaks down to get to work, right? And their children will be better educated. There will be upward mobility in their wealth. But, I can talk about habitat all day, but I want to go to the issues of why you're here today as well. Electrification of homes is something we built, the first C&E blended energy home in the state of Colorado in partnership with Atmos Energy and the Schlesman Family Foundation. That home produces more energy than it uses, but it is a blended energy fuel source. What I'm concerned as a housing provider is you saddle a family, especially a family living on vulnerable incomes, with one energy source. That could backfire, right? That one energy source could escalate. So as legislators, that's one thing to think about, the implications of going with a sole energy source for a home. So that's number one. Number two, we are moving the needle with technologies in construction. How many here have heard of 3D printing homes? Anybody? Yay, good. Well, I'm happy to tell you this morning that we will be piloting along with the company Alphys that the city of Greeley recruited to headquarter from Iowa to our city. Alphys is a technology company that has developed robots and proprietary mud. And I was a stakeholder's daughter, so let me tell you, when I started researching this, I went very neutral, right? I went neutral. I've been following the technology with the Habitat affiliate in Virginia. I saw the success that that particular Habitat affiliate was having with this type of technology. And I don't know, since I was a little girl, we've pretty much been building housing the same way, right? This technology really does bring to the table a way to revolutionize things like fire. When we see what happened in Superior, a 3D printed home will be much more resistant to fire. It can withstand up to 170 miles of wind, so think about tornadoes, that we had here like in Windsor, about 20 years ago. They are more climate friendly. In fact, the money that we will be using to build our first homes will actually be carbon neutral, and we're looking at Alphys is really developing what will be called zero carbon, negative carbon, where the material, the mud, will actually eat carbons, extract carbons out of the air. So this is really exciting to be happening right here in northern Colorado, and we will be the epicenter of this technology. I think that's about all the time.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for sharing. The work you're doing is extraordinary, so thank you for sharing. I'm just going to give you, again, to kind of wrap the panel today, 30 seconds. You have a room full of legislators and businesses and collaborators and partners. What can we do most for you as we lean into the new legislative session and go forward? How can we gather around you as partners, and how can we help you?
Well, I'll take that first, just go back to the microphone. I think one of the advancements I've seen, and the pandemic really was a large part of this with ARPA money, is to continue to incentivize development of affordable housing. And whether it's, this blended energy or electrification of homes, or again, incentivizing developers to be creative and use new technologies to improve production, efficiencies, and cost.
And I think it's continuing to engage, continuing to have the conversations. We host a lot of events at our building and welcome people in so they can see truly what we do, but also to have conversations so that we can connect, right? I think there's a lot of disconnectivity right now with a lot of people. So the more engagement we have, the more connected we can get people. Continuing to look at that. I think, Sandra, you hit on it, picking your head up a little bit and stepping back and really having those conversations. It's critical and it's important. It's very easy to get dialed in with just the day-to-day and lose sight of that. So that's something that we welcome. And if there's a reason, if you need a place to host an event, we do quite a few of those. So please continue the conversation.
Thanks, Grace.
I have a couple of really particular things, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like I said, I work with a lot of restaurant clients in the area, and a couple of things that have kind of been, brought up many, many times. The minimum wage issue really affects restaurants, and all I will say is there's a tip credit. And if you don't know what the tip credit is, it's basically how people get paid in the restaurant industry. And as a server, you basically get paid a little bit less because you make tips, right? The issue is as we are increasing minimum wages, we're increasing minimum wages for everybody, right? And so all I will say is, let's try to figure out a way to segment these things out. As restaurant owners, we fully understand that there is not a lot of affordable housing in this area. It's difficult for our employees to pay their rent. It's difficult for our employees to get mortgages. We fully understand that. And all I will ask is if you are involved in those conversations, also ask restaurant owners to those conversations with you to tell you this is how we can do it together, right? And so all industries are different. And so when we're making these decisions about wages, a lot of different industries need to be there, and right now ours is still very, very fragile. So again, our intention as restaurant owners is to provide good living for our staff, but we need to figure out how to do that together. We need your help, is what I'm saying. And then aside from that, I would say, again, just keep us involved, and we kind of have formed our little segments. Since 2020, we now used to be really competitive in the restaurant industry, and now we're really together. And something that keeps getting brought up with the restaurants that are really fragile are these idle loans that were taken out in 2020. I don't know if there's anything that we can do about that, but the restaurant industry, they're paying these huge loan payments for loans they had to take out because they didn't have to, they wanted to keep their staff employed. And it wasn't the PPP, right? It was the loan. And a lot of these restaurants are still struggling to pay back these big jumbo loans. And so I would say if there's any way that maybe we can try to address that for the hospitality industry, that would also be wonderful. So again, thank you for what all of you do for small businesses and in particular the hospitality industry. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. One final round of applause in keeping with our sports theme for the critical players on the field. Really appreciate you. Thank you very much. It is my honor today to turn over the microphone to Mindy McCloughan, President and CEO of the Loveland Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Jamie. In keeping with our sports theme, as she did say, I am Mindy McCloughan, President and CEO of Loveland Chamber of Commerce. And if you're following anything with Loveland, regardless of what you think or see, we are open for business, even if I damn well have to put a retention pond or open it up around my office and have a mud wrestling contest and sell tickets, we will. So we are open for business in Loveland. Yes, we are. table, you will see our 2024 priority statements for NCLA. I'm just going to provide a little bit of context there. We're going to bring out Sandra and Val and get on to our closing remarks and speaker and Lynch. So you can see, providing some context there, water resource development, it's a regional collaboration focusing on increasing water storage, support Northern Water's effort on Colorado River issues, storage to meet future growth, encourage innovative conservation approaches, Northern Colorado Integrated Supply Project, preserve existing local land use authority, and on to labor and employment. We're supporting funding and programs to assist people to grow skills across all levels of industry, empower public-private partnerships, and on to our great community issues, balance the rights of individuals and property owners with public health and safety, find solutions that create housing affordability, and in transportation, it's a two-county region, completing the I-25 corridor, Colorado Highway 392, onto Colorado State Highway 14, including the I-25 interchange, US 34, I-25 to Weld County Road 13, 35th Avenue, 47th Avenue, and Weld County Road 17. These are some of our issues we're going to be hyper-focused on this year, along with all the moving parts with our legislation. Sandra, can I get you and Val to come on up with me? We're going to talk about you might want to talk about some forecasts on those issues, as well as our call to action.
No, that was fantastic, and the priority statements that you see here really help us as we lead into the legislative session, defines our role in those key areas. But of course, we jump into the fray of the whole range of issues as we were discussing this morning. So thank you, Mindy, for outlining those additional issues that are critically important to us. As I mentioned at the outset, and through our early conversation, your engagement is really key, and we have developed some additional tools to really drive that engagement, and we appreciate the opportunity to sort of share. And Val, I can never say your name right, Valine has, with Old Town Media, has jumped in full throttle to really revamp our communications and the way in which our members and you can engage with us through this legislative session and beyond. So I'll hand it off to Val to talk through some of this.
So what we've done, and we're excited about this, is we've created an Axios-style communications platform. So we're going to encourage you all to sign up today. And basically, during the legislative session, Sandra is going to take the bills that affect all of us. She's going to narrow it down, and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, into how it affects you, what it is, and a quick call to action of what you can do to actually make change. So it's going to be taking all the brain calories out for how you, as a business community, can get involved. During the legislative session, you can expect about 1 email a week from us. If there's something squirrely going on, you might get an extra one. But outside of the legislative session, we'll get out of your inbox. So really pay attention to these emails because they'll be important, they will be mindful, and they'll be simple to take action. So I think I got it all there, but check us out on social too, and we'll try to keep you guys informed.
One other thing, I want to thank the Northern Colorado legislators who are here today, and can I ask them to stand once again, because these are the folks with whom you will be engaging, and we work with every day. Representative Kip, Senator Janal is here, fantastic. Minority Leader Lynch, Representative Armagost, Representative Baysmaker, and we have four or five others. Oh, Representative Kip, I think I mentioned Representative Kip. These folks work tirelessly, hours and hours at the State House in committee meetings. But again, as I mentioned earlier, they are receptive to the stories, to your perspectives, and utilizing the tools that we have available through their website. It allows you the information you need to understand contextually what the issues are, so that you can provide that context. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your work with us. We're so grateful. for everything that you do for the region, and we look forward to the next year ahead. Thank you so much.
At this time, if I could have Representative Mike Lynch come on down. Thank you, Mike, for all you're doing and all you did for us this last year. It was an interesting playing field for us, and we definitely appreciate all that you did.
Thank you. Well, we're on an abbreviated schedule because I'm really excited to get to go to ribbon cutting after this. So, but I want to thank Sandra. Honestly, you could not be represented better down there. Thank you, Sandra, for all that you do. She is truly a champion down there on issues that she brings your voice to us and lets us know what's going on in our area. So, but thank you so much for having me talk to you. I am actually a business owner and a commercial building owner, and so I actually experienced some of the pain that's going on. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the special session, but I think I'm going to cut a lot of that out. Let me just summarize what went on in the special session. You know, and I'm going to try not to be overly political here, but you know, we called, as Republicans, we called for a special session to occur in hopes that we would truly get together and come up with some solutions. I unfortunately would like to report that we, on the Republican side, don't feel like that happened. And I also want to remind you that I am the minority leader and that there is not a single Republican in charge of anything in the state for going on 10 years now. So when you open up that property tax bill, I want you to remember that. I have a summary here of what went on with those bills. I will see, so some good things that did come out of that is that the voice was heard about Tabor, and the one bill that actually truly impacted property tax, that they did guard Tabor against that. We interpreted the vote on HH to mean that the citizens really didn't want you to mess with Tabor, so we attempted, while we had the doors open there, to go back and modify some previous legislation that did tap into Tabor, and we were unsuccessful with that. But that's the one good thing that came out of it. Some other things that really bother me that happened with that is a normalization of our tax returns, which I just firmly don't believe is fair. If you pay $10,000 in taxes in this state, you're going to get the same amount back as somebody who paid $10 in taxes. And so that's Tabor refund. So the way we should look at that is that is money that is excess. That's where the government grabbed it from you and said, oops, we're sorry, we grabbed too much of your money. And oh, by the way, we're not going to give you all of the money that we accidentally grabbed back to you. So there were some things that went on during the special session that really, I believe, move things in the wrong direction. And I've got a big list of those, but we're limited on time. But I want to talk specifically today about your priorities and how I see the landscape down at the Capitol over this next session coming across. So water resources is number one on your list. And this is an area where actually, if it wasn't for our very wet spring that we had in summer, we really, as a state, had, with the Colorado Water Compact, we really did have Arizona and California at the table. There was some pain there. We were going to be able to go negotiate with them. Fortunately and unfortunately, we had a very wet spring and summer, and so therefore they were like, well, those reservoirs are full now, so that has pushed those conversations further down the road. You know, there's been a number of water conservation measures down there, and at this point, I'm happy to report that none of them are being forced on folks. It's here's what we would like for you to do. I don't see. I'm not optimistic that'll remain that way, but right now they're not mandates. They're hey, why don't you try to do this? We'll give you some incentives to do that. Another thing that I would hope you guys will stay on top of is a Supreme Court decision that turns WOTUS, Waters of the U.S., back over to the states. Right now, our state has decided that CEPHE should be the people that are determining what wetlands are in the state. That should scare you a bit. We're pushing to try to get that to DNR. That conversation is still ongoing down there, but that really does impact, potentially impact, northern Colorado in a very big way. In that, if those guys, I don't know how much experience you have with CDPHE, but I really don't trust them with much. And when it starts coming in and making decisions for developers and where they can put stuff, that gets a little scary. Labor and employment stuff, there's a real appetite right now in the state for workforce education, for getting folks to have the right skills that they need. I'm excited with some of the measures that are going on with that. We saw some of the scary stuff that can happen last year with the scheduling legislation, where the state is going to really tell you as small business owners how and when your employees can work. That is scary. It's really not, doesn't help us much in moving stuff forward. Let's see, moving on to community issues. I often say, come to Denver and you can see what's coming to a neighborhood near you. I say that a lot, and then I step out of my business in Loveland to find someone living in the doorway next to me and a car parked that's been there for a couple weeks and somebody living in it. Those issues are coming our direction. The addiction issues that we see throughout the state, these are mental health issues. These are issues that the state can and should help us get going with. One of the things that is encouraging, I do see some movement with construction defects. I think that we will have some good conversations in freeing up the free market. I personally believe that the government should have nothing to do with housing. However, but what it can do is get out of the way of people that want to go and provide housing for folks. So I think, the construction defects laws that we put in place are slowing folks down. I see some progress maybe on that. And then my area of passion is the fight on fentanyl. We created, this will be my fight in the next legislative session. We, for whatever reason, in 2019, created laws that made 4 grams of possession of any illicit substance a misdemeanor with a ticket. So, hey, you with your cocaine in your pocket, don't do that. But now we have fentanyl on the scene, and we are seeing our citizens being killed by this. I don't call it a drug, it is a poison that is killing our citizens, and it's time for the legislature to do what it can to crack down on that. That will be my passion fight. I believe that those issues are kind of the systematic beginning of what's causing all these issues that we have when I step out of my business in Loveland. Transportation, so excited today. I cannot believe we're getting closer. I drive I-25 every day. I do not go down to stay in Denver. I could not be happier that we are getting some progress on that. Every legislator in this room signed a letter along with me that got the CZOT administrator up here. My goal of that was kind of be an armory, was to, I want her to drive on this dang road that I drive every day. I'm not sure if she came up 85, I'm not sure which way she came because they decided to schedule that when I was out of town, dropping my son off at West Point. For some reason, I was not able to attend that meeting, but some people were. But we're trying to draw attention to northern Colorado and say, look, okay, you're done messing up the roads between here and Colorado Springs. Now let's get this wrapped up here. I'm super excited that we're finally seeing some closure with that. Like I said, I had a huge list of stuff, but we had nowhere in a hurry to get out of here. But hey, I just want to leave you with these thoughts. It sounds like I'm complaining. I'm not a complainer. I'm so proud to be native Colorado. I'm so proud to be from northern Colorado. And so honored to represent you guys up here. This is a state that's worth fighting for. It's a state that's worth staying involved. It breaks my heart every time I hear about somebody who says, you know what, I've got to get out of this state, I'm leaving. That tears at me every time I hear that. So thank you so much for all that you guys do up here and keeping us smart. Not everybody can be smart on all the issues. And legislators deal with 600 bills in a session in 120 days. So do some math on that. That does not allow enough time for anybody to be an expert on anything. I will tell you that when belt buckle policy comes along and foundry work, I can rock that policy. So far, in my time down at Capitol, I've not seen that. So thank you so much for being involved with the sausage making that takes place 60 miles down the road. We can't do this without your input. And also, you get out of it what you put into it. So the more you guys are able to keep us smart on issues, the better off I think we'll be in the state. So thank you so much, and let's go cut a ribbon. That sounds
Thank you, Representative Lynch, and thank you for all of our legislators for taking time, and really thank all of you small business owners, because your time is precious, and because we're trying to get out to the middle of I-25. I'm going to cut it short. I want to just ask that once again you help me thank both our speakers today. And all of our sponsors who made it possible. So once again, real quick, Elevations Credit Union, Biz West, Pinnacle Assurance, UC Health, Comcast, Mint Credit Union, Slate, an Element Studio, Stonescape, Steel Roofing, Fairfield by Marriott, Candlewood Suites, Canvas Credit Union, Northern Engineering Services, and Total Facility Care. Just as a reminder, all of this material will be on the NCLA Biz website, as well as your local chamber. And now, it gives me great pleasure to say this. Get out of here. Go out and show that everyone